I think for us this week has been a lot of conversations about distractions. Maybe it's due to the new moon. We have been very tested in ways and like refocusing our attention on soul sisters, refocusing our attention on the things that matter and keeping our vibration high. That's been something we've been really talking about this week, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's been a whole lot of stuff coming up around I think like distractions in general too, right, Cher? Like there's so much happening and I think that like the biggest distraction that I have found even for myself is the distraction of my devices, like my phone. I honestly
Mhm.
I have felt like I'm like constantly being sucked into my phone. Like I'm constantly getting notifications and constantly getting messages and constantly getting calls and constantly like there's always it feels like it's a constant thing and it's become almost like it's become a habit of going and checking my phone. And I was sitting
Mhm.
down last night
Mhm.
when I was like journaling and thought to myself, I said, I feel so busy. And I've been telling you this too. It's like, I feel so busy. I feel so overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that's on my plate. And I said, I sent you a message too. And I was like, I got to reassess how I am, um, how I'm like managing everything. I need to like
Mhm.
reassess because it doesn't feel good. It feels like feels like monotonous and busy and heavy. And last night I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, I feel like I'm busy because I am not putting up strong enough boundaries for myself. I
Mhm.
feel like I'm busy because
Yes.
when I'm going and I'm like sitting down to eat a meal, I'm checking my emails. And yesterday,
Yeah. You think
other
you're being efficient, right?
you think you're being efficient, but it's like it's just noise. I'm realizing I'm sitting here, I'm like, it's just noise. Like not all of these things need my attention. And not all of these things need my attention right now in the moment. I couldn't even sit still in my chair a few days
Mhm.
ago. I'm sitting still just to have a quiet moment and I'm sitting in my chair and I'm just trying to be quiet and still. And I look up at my vent that blows out like the heat and it's like blowing out really hot air, like it's a good flow. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it feels so good. And then my mind starts wandering. I'm like, wait a minute, how come other vents in my house don't blow out the air like that forcefully? So the next thing you know, I'm up and I'm checking the other vents. And I'm like, Whitley, what are you doing? You sat down to take a moment for yourself and look at
Mhm.
you. You're problem solving right now. Like chill out. And I find myself doing that every day throughout the day. I just can't
Mhm.
shut my brain off. I can't
Yeah.
sit and be still. I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to sit and be
Mhm.
still, but now it's just, I don't know. And I feel like that is what's creating the havoc. It's creating that overwhelm and like the
Mhm.
distractions around everything. It's
Yeah.
like I need to find a way of enforcing stronger boundaries, not for anyone else, but for myself. I've done a good job at enforcing boundaries with other people, but I'm realizing no, the problem is me. I need to start
100%.
putting
Yeah, we
right.
we usually think that the boundaries, like we have to set boundaries with other people, but it's more so about us setting boundaries for ourselves. And like you said, your mind wanders, and I feel like that vent was the distraction for you to maybe distract yourself from what you were doing and to also control
Mhm.
situations. So you're saying, I got to get this done, this done, this done. So as I see it, I've got to get it done because I have responsibilities, right? I'm a single mom. I have two kids here. I'm the only one who needs to take care of it, who gets to take care of it. I'm the only one who can. And
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
start seeing these things over as it becomes an autopilot for you. And not to say you have ADHD, but that's a similar trait of people with ADHD, right? It's the constant like mind wandering. And I know with my husband and my son, like they don't sleep at night because their mind wanders. And it could be just the littlest thing of like what's on the ceiling, right? Or yeah, and I think the worst thing is like
Uh-huh.
going to bed with the news on. Have you ever done that?
Oh,
My
I don't do that
husband does
shit.
this.
I no, I would shut that shit down so quick. Ain't no way that
Yeah,
my brain is going to sleep listening to that news.
that was me last night. I'm waking up at, 12 o'clock at night and I'm hearing Donald Trump's like name on the TV and I'm thinking, why is he playing this while I'm sleeping? And so I'm going through like all this negative, self-talk in my brain unconsciously or subconsciously. And I'm like, I don't have the energy to turn off this TV right now. I used to do this like many years ago, play news on TV. And I realized how bad that is for you. That's so bad for you. So yeah, that's one thing you said about you having to check emails. I used to do that all the time, but you do set your boundaries. I've seen you do it. But back in the day, I think I used to do that where I used to be like, oh, I got an email. I got to respond right away. Because if I don't, then number one, I might just forget about it. Number two, I might make them feel like I'm making them wait. And that's the people pleasing thing in me. But like, it's also needing to get stuff done on time and to set goals for myself and to make myself feel more productive and more efficient and worthy and enough in how I'm managing life or how I'm controlling my life. And I think that by just setting our boundaries with ourselves and like also honoring our rest time is more important than getting the job done, efficiently or on time, because that's a hustle mentality, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right about that. It definitely comes from that hustle mentality. There's also like a level of control, I think, to it. And, you and I have talked about this before. It's like, if we're not thinking about it, if we're not handling it, then it's not going to get done. And so there's like a level of needing to control. And when we're like trying to control things, it really does drain us in the process. But
Yeah.
to your point, and I know we talked about this as well when it comes to setting down time slots to answering emails, time slots to working on certain tasks. And I think that that is definitely a really actually powerful way to enforce those boundaries for ourselves, is to actually sit down. And I think I've been trying to play with that too, is getting clear on some of the habits that I want to create for myself that I know is going to help me to evolve and sort of go to that next level that you and I have been
Yeah.
talking about. But it's a practice, right? And just identifying, well, what are those habits that we can start to implement that's going to help us along that path of getting to where we want to be and showing up the way that we want to be. And then eliminating the distractions too, right? So, but we don't know what the distractions are until we actually sit down and
Oh,
write
I
it
know
out
my
of like
distractions. Like
what
it
they
is
are.
social media. That is my distract.
Socially.
It is TikTok. It is going down a rabbit hole of P.
Oh,
Diddy's excursions. It's
yeah.
it's all the news. It's all the like I messaged you yesterday and I said, I feel so heavy with the world. Like all that's happening in the US right now, it's affecting us too, right? And so I don't want to be in that frequency, right?
Yeah.
Where the news and the haters, let's say, and all of the division and the negativity overtakes my frequency. So like that, I agree. It's like the distractions.
Huh?
We need to know what those are, right? Like you said, we need to know what the distractions are so that we can keep our frequency elevated.
That's such a great point to share, because I think there's like so many of us can relate to that. And something that I also want to like highlight is I feel that, and I'm curious to know too, like for our listeners who are tuning in right now, love to hear your feedback, your comments on this and in the comments below. When you feel like you're about to up level in your life, when you feel like you're about to embark on a new journey or a new path, or when you feel like, or when you're about to begin a new project that's exciting, whenever you're about to like, we'll just say like level up and do something new, do something like powerful, the distractions get louder, do they not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Distractions get louder. And distractions come through not just like social media or the news. Distractions will come through as people too. So certain people may come into your life or
Yeah.
come back into your life. Distractions come up in the form of bringing up some of your old triggers, right?
Yeah.
So maybe certain situations will happen like financially, or maybe even just like relationships with other people, dynamics, or certain types of stories that you've played out in your life. Like certain situations will come up to kind of like trigger you, right? So it's like there's a lot of like distractions I feel can come through in so many forms. But yeah, you have to also be really mindful of and aware of those things. Actually, I want to share something really quick. I want to share something.
No, share. This is what we're here for.
Um, so like you're talking about like your frequency when you're like you go down the TikTok
Tic
rabbit
tac,
hole.
tic tac. I wish it was tic tac,
I don't know why, but I just had this like moment of like nostalgia of a
tic tac.
Tic Tac commercial or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Whitley. I may have a little bit
All
of
right. See, there's the diversion.
Okay, so going back to what you were saying about lowering your
Mm-hmm.
vibration and going down the TikTok rabbit hole. I've been there. We've all been there. But yeah, a lot of it can be super, super depressing, sad, overwhelming, scary, and it just like lowers your own vibration. So I think that one of the keys to in navigating your journey is making sure that you're keeping your frequency at a high vibration, right? So when we keep our energy elevated, then we're able to align with the things that are for our highest good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we're operating in like a lower frequency, a lower vibration, then we're aligning ourselves with other things that are also like operating at that level of frequency. So I want to share a quick little story with everybody. And this is just a great example of being aware of the energy around us, being aware of your own energy, and putting yourself in a position of choosing to stay in your own frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter is transferring schools, and I was taking her to her new school to get her enrolled and transferred over. And when we arrived, like everybody was super sweet, so nice and warm and inviting. She was like, smiling, really, really happy. And then we had to wait to meet with the guidance counselor to go through her classes. So we were waiting for the guidance counselor. Guidance counselor was like running late. She had a lot going on, I guess, day. And so by the time that we got into the meeting, it's already about 15 minutes late. She's frazzled. You can tell it's evident like she's having a stressful morning. And we're sitting there and I'm trying to make small talk with her and she's not really having it. And she's trying to figure out like class placements and everything. And it just is like a really classic example of when you wake up and you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and your whole day just kind of goes to shit. I feel like that was like
been there
that day for her, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so like you can feel energy too. Like
right. You can feel other people's energy. 100%.
Yeah. And I look over to my daughter Avery and, like her smile, her excitement is like gone. She's sitting there like, and I'm just like, so I pull out my phone and I text her, right? Because it's super quiet in the room. It's just awkward. And I pull out my phone and I text her, discreetly. And I just said to her in my text, I said, don't let her energy throw your energy off. Like she's having a bad day. Don't let it affect you. And I said, if anything, we can make the situation better and let's raise the energy in the room.
Oh, that's a long text.
Well, I mean, in a nutshell, right?
What was she doing while you were writing this text?
Over at me, she's just like, well, like the guidance counselor, she's going through papers, going through her computer, right? She's not interacting with us at this point. She's trying to figure stuff out.
Gotcha.
So Avery looks at me and she smiles because like she's used to me talking like this. And so I look over to the guidance counselor at this point and I'm just trying to think of like something to like, kind of like strike up some sort of conversation. So I say, how long have you been working here for? And she says, 18 years. And I was really actually thrown back by that. And I was really surprised because she didn't look like she could be old enough to work there for 18 years. And so I said that. I said, no way. I said, you don't even look like you're old enough to work, like to have worked here that long. And she just immediately lights up and starts smiling and laughs. And she's like, oh, I'll take that compliment any day. And then, and immediately it just lightened the mood in the room. And then we got talking and it just like opened up the doorway for her to be more receptive, having a conversation, right? And we all start talking and then it just like the energy totally shifted. Avery is laughing, she's smiling. Now the guidance counselor's smiling. And, it just lightened it completely shifted the whole room, the whole, like all the energy. And
it's so funny how that happens. Yeah.
But
I've been in so many situations like that too. I could totally relate. Yeah.
It's a great example though.
It's a wonderful example.
How energy can affect us or how we can manipulate energy. Right?
Like we're all energy. Correct. Yeah. And something can throw off your mood like my mom does this, right? So she's in Barbados or whatever, and we would go to the grocery store when I'm down there, and she would see this cashier who's just hating her job, and she's like, I do not want to be here. You can clearly see it on her face. She's not smiling. She's just packing the groceries, and she looks like she just wants to, like, you know
Not
just
be
doesn't
there.
want to be there. And so my mom, what she will do is just be like, you look beautiful today. Like, she'll give her a compliment and
Oh,
say, you have a nice smile or something. And immediately, this poor cat girl at the cashier is just beaming, and she's loving my mother, That's what it does. It's just like immediately takes you out of a funk, when you're in a
mhm.
funk. And that's what validation does for us. And there's been so many times where I felt down and out in whatever I'm doing, like my job, or say, I'm not feeling like the best mom today, or I'm having like a really bad day. And something along the way will come across to make me feel like, okay, like I'm on the right path. I'm deserving of, all this love, and I'm deserving of a good life, and I feel good. So it's like if someone says to me, like, I love your work, immediately my mood changes, right? Because you
Yeah.
feel like you're doing something, you're worthy of something. And if you go into a room where you feel like, good example of that is that woman you were talking about, if you feel like she's rubbing your energy the wrong way, well, you can either bring your frequency low to her and meet hers,
Yeah.
or you could choose to elevate hers, which you did. And
Yeah.
when you choose to elevate other people's frequencies, you're creating a world of love and light instead of bringing everyone else down with you. And that's what social media does, is it's a division. And so you see people bullying each other, and then you see the other side of it where some people are just quiet because they don't want to say anything, afraid to fall into that trap of, uh, on that side of the bullying, on that side of feeling unworthy and like unheard. And so it's a fight if you do bring something up that you believe in. And so when you are going on social media, you have to watch what you read. You have to watch what you watch. And even when you're typing something, if you don't agree with like a certain video or a certain opinion of somebody's, there's been so many times where I've wanted to leave a comment on a video that has triggered me, right? And I can't believe this person said this thing. And I want to say something so bad. But I know from experience that doesn't do anything. All it does is create more fuel to that fire, right? So what you did was you reversed that energy
Mhm.
into more of a loving light, which is not adding any fuel to any fire. It is, if anything, it's putting the fire out, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I love that example. I love that example that you shared. That's something that I think all of us can learn from, because it comes down to compassion. It comes down to not always putting your guard up or wanting to be right about everything or defensive.
Right. And the thing is I'm not a perfect human being, and I've been there many, many times, and I still find myself at times where somebody's being rude to me and I want to give that energy right back at them, and sometimes I do, right? It may not be the right way of handling things, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I have found myself doing that too, but like you begin to realize though how much more powerful it is when you choose love over anything, right? So in that moment, I chose love versus being like, hey, like you're late for our appointment that you scheduled for us at such a time, and
Yeah.
you've been rude. And like I could have handled
Mhm.
it that way. But to your point about, the example of you wanting to respond to that comment that person wrote, what would that achieve? What would that do? Nothing. And it's like when we respond to people through that lens of compassion and through that lens of love, you start to like raise the vibration of not just yourself, but of others too. So when you can go and turn someone's day around like your mother does, right? Given that
Mhm.
cashier a compliment, she turns her day around. Well, guess what's going to happen? that cashier is probably going to be super, super
Mm-hmm.
kind to the next
Mm-hmm.
set of customers that come through. And those set of customers are going to also feel that energy and then go out and bring that energy out
Right.
to other people. So like, it's like a ripple effect, right?
It's a
And at
ripple
the end
effect.
of the day, it's like that love, that pure energy is always going to defeat over fear, over hate, over any of that, you know? So yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's really, really cool when we think about it that way.
Yeah. What do they say? Love conquers all. Or what do they say? Make love, not war.
Make love, not war. That song.
I mean, we could choose to go down with the ship or we could choose to create our own, you know? So I think that we need to know where to put our energy, where to
Mm,
just remove those distractions from our life because we do want to know what's going on in the world, right? We do want to know what's happening, but know where your limit is, know where you're feeling that frequency lower for no reason. And how can you, cut it off? How can you cut that off so that you can elevate your frequency again? And then another way of doing that is by surrounding yourself with the people that
mm,
raise your frequency, right?
yeah.
And also when people come back into your life that you are connected to lowering your frequency, you have to know how to navigate through that. And I think it's like another test, right? It's another test of the
Mm,
universe. It's like, okay, let's see how you handle this person who has triggered you. And maybe they're on a different journey, but they're going to come back in and you're going to have to navigate through this. Are you going to lower your frequency again? Or are you going to choose to elevate it? How are you going to navigate this?
ooh.
You know?
Ooh, I like that. I can
Mm.
think of a lot of examples in my own life of that happening. And I'm really curious to know, like, from your experiences, share, when does that, if you can think back in your own journey of that theme happening, typically what was going on in your life when that would come up, when that would surface?
Yeah. So like if somebody, I know the types of frequencies that I want to be around now because I feel like I've been going through a huge shift of like detachment from certain frequencies and people. And so, I don't think they understand that, right? Some people don't understand where I'm at right now, but it's my journey of like, finding my own journey, frequency, identity, whatever that looks like. And sometimes that includes not talking to the same people that you've talked to for a long time. And maybe it takes time for certain people to catch up to you, right? So that's not an ego thing. It's just kind of like, what kind of frequencies you want to be around. And so the past frequencies, I would say, would make me feel not in my power, would make me feel like I would have to fit in, to people please, I felt like I was confined into a box, right? And I wasn't able to spread or like elevate myself as much as I would want to around certain people because, again, putting yourself in a box around a frequency. And so if you are going to go back to certain people, you have to show up with the elevated frequency so that hopefully, they will match that frequency, right? Eventually catch up to that frequency. But if they don't want to, then that's okay. They're on their own separate journey. And maybe it's best to not go back there. Maybe it's best to continue on. But if they want to come up to that frequency with me and we can talk about the things that elevate us,
Yeah.
because we have to evolve and we have to also mature in a sense in the world, like the things I thought of when I was 20, I don't think of the same way anymore. The gossiping, calling people out on their appearances, and those were things of the past. But as you grow older, you become wiser and you also become more compassionate and you become more elevated and you start to see things as truth and you start to shift perspectives on life
Mm-hmm.
and you start to look at people differently and how they treat people and how they treat you. And so if you're going to hang around with 5 negative people, I always say this, you're going to be the 6th negative person,
Mm-hmm.
you know? If you're
Yeah.
going to hang out with 5 positive, rich millionaires, hey, I would like to be the 6th, right?
Oh, girl. I love
What
that.
do you
Yeah.
think about that? Because I know you've had so many, your life has been like a roller coaster of frequencies. So let's talk about your frequency levels and where that's taken you to this level where you're at, because I feel like we discuss this all the time. We're like, we
Mhm.
can't go back to that frequency, that low level frequency, right? Because we know what it's like to be there, but we also know what it's like to be in a high level frequency and we
Yeah.
like it here. So going back to those frequencies or those people who bring it down in you, like how do you navigate that?
Yeah. I think if I think back to like older, like I think of like older versions of myself, because I think your frequency is tied very much to your identity, right? And as you, like you said, as you grow and as you evolve and you change, you do naturally raise your frequency, right? But when you stay the same, your frequency is going to stay the same. If you dip lower, your frequency is going to dip lower. So like I think of our frequency being tied to our identity and our growth. So like when I think back to my
Yeah.
younger versions of myself who was very much in didn't see herself as being worthy, wasn't very confident, was always constantly looking for external validation and people
Mm,
pleasing, and
hmm
yeah, just not really seeing my worth in the world. And I think that because that those types of like behaviors and those types of beliefs operate on a level of a frequency that is like a lower level, that's tied to shame, that's tied to guilt, fear, survival. You tend to attract other people and situations who are also vibrating on that frequency, right? So I think of like the older versions of myself and being in those experiences. It's not fun. It's not fun. Like being in crappy relationships, letting people walk all over you, not believing in yourself enough to really go full into your goals and the things that you know you want to achieve and you know yourself to achieve. I think the biggest thing that I have learned in all of it is showing up as someone who I actually truly wasn't, like wearing different masks and being someone who I truly wasn't because I was afraid to be who I truly was, right? Because if I showed up as the real Whitley, then I had so many fears around being abandoned, being rejected, right, for who I truly am. And I
hmm
think that over the years, through my growth and my journey and shedding away those limiting beliefs, those old stories, shedding away the things that held me back and stepping more into healing and learning to love myself, learning to see myself as worthy and to really believe in myself enough to show up with confidence and not, and I don't say confidence in a way where, because you can fake confidence at times too, right?
Yeah.
Um, but like showing up in a way where I accept myself fully, like flaws and all, allows me to like show up with that grace and to show up with enough confidence in a sense of like, hey, I may not know what the hell I'm doing right now, but I trust myself. I believe in myself enough to be able to figure it out as like, oh, kind of thing, right? And I
Yeah.
think also when you show up, when you begin to like work on yourself too, and as you elevate that frequency, right? Because everything's like an inner game, right? Everything's like the internal work. And when you begin to like cultivate that relationship with yourself internally,
hmm
you naturally elevate your frequency because you're shifting out of those lower vibrations of shame and guilt and fear and unworthiness, and you start to rise and raise your frequency to like love and acceptance and joy and gratitude, right? And when you shift into that, you begin to break free from the people and experiences that you once experienced before that were tied to the old version of yourself, that was tied to the older, lower frequencies. You're no longer going to have those people. And it's crazy because you will see how people will naturally fall off or naturally
Yeah.
leave your life, right? Or all of a sudden, like you break through a limiting belief and story, and all of a sudden you're no longer having to deal with the same sort of like boss dynamic at work, right? It's wild that when we start to like elevate our frequency and we elevate ourselves and expand and evolve our consciousness, that we start to meet people and experiences who are also vibrating at that same level.
Yeah.
So it has been a process. It has been years and years of a journey. And I know you can say the same for yourself too, right, Cher?
hmm
But I can say this is that I'll never go back because once you start to grow, it's like when you go to school, you go to grade school, right? Once you go to grade 5, you don't go backwards, you just keep moving forward, right? It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. You're like, why would I go back to grade 3 if I made it to grade 5, right? So it's
Right.
kind of the same as you start to elevate your own consciousness and raise your frequency and evolve as a human being. you're never going to go back. It's, yeah, but I also want to say this too, because when I said I caught myself, I'm like, you're never going to go back. You may go back temporarily, because there is a period of time, yeah, of that unfamiliarity and that discomfort of like, oh shoot,
Mhm.
like all of a sudden, like I've got good people in my life, things are going good, things are going smooth. Your nervous system, your body, everything hasn't quite caught up to that new frequency and to that evolved consciousness within you.
Right.
And so therefore, sometimes automatically we want to go backwards
Hmm.
temporarily because it feels uncomfortable being in the new and in the unfamiliar. But your soul really won't let you. Like, you may stay there for a little bit of time, but your soul won't let you stay there, because once you experience what you
Hmm.
experience, once you experience that goodness, you're
Yeah.
not going to want to go back to that, right? And so your soul's going to push you to want to like continue to evolve and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I
What do
think
you
it's
think?
those moments of like uncomfortability between evolvement. So I could be in lower frequency level, like say I'm doing a job that, so I was in wedding photography, right? So I'll give that example because it's a really good example where I just felt like my soul, my identity, everything was no longer connected to this career path. And I just, because I'm so connected with myself and my intuition, I knew that it wasn't going to last forever, like that area of my life, that phase of my life. And so what I do is I just listen to those, like let it go kind of moments. So I let it go. But the moment of like you let go and the transition period of where you're going next, holy shit, it's uncomfortable, right? It is the moment of like your frequency is, okay, I'm not up here yet, but I'm also not down here. And so you're in between and you're like, maybe I should go back because it's safe, because it's familiar, because I've known it. And so you may go back, like you said, you may go back. But the moment you go back, the universe is going to push you right back out. And it's going to be like, get the out of here, right? Like you don't belong here. You know that. You're just having a moment. So you have your moment. You go back into the uncomfortable, like unknowns. And that's when you start to do the inner work. That's when you start to feel like, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but I just know that I can't go back and I can't stay here either. So what am I supposed to do? So it's like that moment of like uncomfortability. But in those moments, I feel like is the most transformative. It is the place where you get to level up your energy and your frequency. And that moment is going to show you things that you didn't know about yourself. And it's a healing moment, right? And it will feel uncomfortable, no doubt. But I just know that when we listen to our higher version of ourselves, like say the version of me that comes after this, that if I can tap into that version of me and tell myself exactly what I want and stay connected, then I'm not ever going to go back. I'm going to trust that version of me, you know? And as uncomfortable as this is, guess what? I'm thankful. I am so grateful that I'm uncomfortable because there is no growth without challenge. There is no growth without lessons learned or getting to know who you are and your identity. And so, like, for me, it's like, I know that it can't go smooth sailing because that's not growth, right? And that's just chasing fame or success. But if I truly get to know who I am aligning myself with the true energy of fulfillment in what it is I'm supposed to do next and the true intention of what I'm supposed to do next, because all our lives we go through these different careers or different paths, and many of us don't listen to them. We just do it because we think we have to, because society expects it, because parents expect it, because, it makes more money or whatever. And I truly believe that you will make more money if you want to, if you align with the things that truly matter, and you can be successful, fulfilled, and rich. But I think it's the moments of uncomfortability that are truly important for you to sit and be quiet and listen to yourself in those moments. That's what true growth is really knowing who we are, right? That's what I think.
What do you think helped you in those moments where you had to sit and be quiet and wait? Like, it's almost like an incubation period, right? Where you all you have to do is like sit there and like, so what are some of the things, because I know there are women out there right now who are in that incubation phase right now. So what are some things that helped you in those moments, Share?
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting anyone go and quit their jobs. Don't just go quit your job, like I did. Although I do have like a safety net for the next year, or a couple years, but I'm not depending on it. I'm moving through this journey of like listening, transitioning, also going back because I feel like we talked about this, okay, you and I, where there have been many moments in our lives where we have gone through little sprinkles of nuggets, golden nuggets of what it is we're supposed to do next, but we didn't really follow through on them, right? So we talked about this where before Soul Sisters, we had started a passion project called Igniting Souls. And we were interviewing people with a story. We were interviewing people that had hope and inspiration to share with others. And it was along the same lines as what we're doing now, but this one's more geared towards women. And I feel like had we listened to that moving forward, it wouldn't have worked the same way it's working now because we needed to go through those moments of like lessons and also knowing who we were in those little phases of our lives to take us to the next place, right? And so I think for any woman listening right now, if you feel like, that moment is uncomfortable for you, actually go back. Go back to those places that you have felt a calling or have been interested in doing something that maybe you didn't pursue. And maybe it's saying, you know what, now is the time. And I'm going to choose myself over the fear, and I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. And also knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable to go through that because it may not be smooth sailing. It's not going to be like overnight success. But if you're going through it, know that that uncomfortable feeling is good, right?
Yeah. I
Trust. Yeah.
Trust. Yeah. That's like the big thing too is like that I'm hearing from that is number one, trust. Number two, you need to also be willing to surrender to like the process of it all, right?
Yeah.
So number one, like, yeah, trusting that whatever is for you and whatever you're being called toward, trusting that it is for you. It's calling you forward for a reason. And then also like surrendering to that process in the way of like, you don't need to know exactly how it's gonna happen. You don't need to know exactly, how it's gonna pan out, or what everything's gonna look like. You just need to be willing to take the first step on that path, saying yes, putting your hand up and saying yes to taking the first step onto that path and co-creating that with the universe, because the universe will guide you. And if you can think back on times in your life of uncertainty, of times in your life when you thought everything was falling apart and you didn't know how it was going to work out and you got through it, and looking back in hindsight, you can see how all of those little things worked out in your favor and how it all lined up. And also, if you want to go a little bit like deeper with that, because some of the most hardest challenges in our life teach us the biggest lessons and strengthen our character in the most beautiful ways. And those challenges, you see those as opportunities to prepare you for what is yet to come, always. And that incubation period, that phase that you're talking about, Cher, that can be really uncomfortable. I've been there too.
Yeah.
It's a phase where it's preparing you. It's preparing your spirit. It's preparing your mind, your emotions, your character, your skills, everything and anything.
It's aligning you, right?
Exactly. That needs to like be on the level that it needs to be to align you for what is yet to come. So again, trust it, surrender to the process.
Because if you surrender, you will be open to receiving. And when you're open to receiving, you get gifts, you get surprises. To me, that's the best part of living, is living with those surprises. I don't want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. I want to take today and I want to be like, I'm open to receiving whatever, comes today, because I know that it's going to lead me somewhere else. Because you can have a vision all you want and say, I want this, but we've talked about this so many times. The universe has different plans. It's nudging you to do things along the way, though. So it's saying, go move to Toronto, Whitley, move to Canada, Sherry, quit your job, Sherry, like it's telling you to do these things for a reason. I truly believe it's not like, oh, I just hate my job, I want to quit. No. And there was no rhyme or reason. It was just the fact that I was feeling like I needed to. When you know, when you have a knowing, universe is like, I'll take care of the rest. You
Yeah.
just do this. You do this step, I will take care of the rest. And along that journey, so many little things have come along our way, so many surprises, so many moments of clarity
Mm-hmm.
and excitement, like around what we're building together, that it feels like, again, invite those surprises, invite the adventure. You don't have to know what's on the other side. You can be
No.
grateful for every challenge that
Yeah.
comes your way. If a
Yeah.
challenge comes your way, be like, you know what? I'm so thankful this is happening to me right now because I know it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you change that, switch that, like you've said that so many times, it's like change it to for me instead of to me. Because, you could be a millionaire right now and lose all your money. Then what? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You could switch that around, be like, I lost all my money, but it's happening for me. So what am I going to do?
Mm.
I really think that it doesn't happen by accident. Whatever happens to us happens for us.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. And then just thinking of experiences in my own life where, something happened and it would trigger me. And looking back in hindsight of, looking at those experiences as opportunities as, okay, amazing. You know what? This is the desire that I put out not too long ago. This is what I'm hoping to achieve. This is who I've put my hand up and have said, this is who I want to be. This is what I want to step into. And you got to think of those challenges as ways for the universe to, I don't want to say like test you, but to give you an opportunity of growth so that you can step into that desire, that whatever it is that you're hoping to call into or to step into. And there was something that you said earlier. Remember how you were talking about the different synchronicities that will come in and the universe will take care of like the people and the situation, like the surprises, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of going back to the importance of keeping your frequency elevated. When you have your frequency elevated, it is easier for the universe to align with you, to
Yeah.
co-create with you, and to send you those surprises, to send you those nudges, to send you those synchronicities, to send you those signs, the people, all of it. So, that's so important for you to be vibrating at a higher frequency, and it's like the frequency of the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think of like a radio, right? Think of an old radio, and when you're switching through the channels, right? Some channels are fuzzy, right? You can't
Yep.
hear what's coming through, it's being transmitted. But when you switch the channel to a channel that it's clear and you can hear what's coming through, there's no different than being in alignment and on that frequency with the universe. So if you
Mm-hmm.
think of yourself as a radio and as one of those channels that you're tuning into, if you're tuning into a frequency that is like at a lower vibration, you're not going to hear the universe speak to you. You're not going to hear the nudges or the signs and synchronicities. So you need to change the channel, the frequency, so that you can operate on the level of the universe, so that you can let in and receive the feedback, receive all of the things that the universe has there. Because you and I have experienced this so many times in our life, share of co-creating with universe. So when we're elevated, when we're coming at life from a place of like abundance and joy and gratitude and love, we say this to each other all the time. We're like, oh my gosh, like you won't believe what happened. And it's like magic. It feels like it's like magic. It's like we don't even have to like do like quote unquote hard hustle work, because we're vibrating on this frequency where we're like, we set the intention. This is what we want to call in. And then literally the next day, we get like an email from someone who
Mm-hmm.
is connecting us with that person that we need to get connected with, right? It's like little surprises, like, and that is what I'm talking about. You don't have to do quote unquote this like hustle, hard work where you got to grind in 80 hours a week. You don't got to do that. That's like so archaic and that is so low vibrational that when you begin to be in alignment with your soul and your true self and the universe,
Yeah.
you're going to still have to do work. Don't get me wrong, but it's internal work. It's internal work.
Yeah.
And some of it, yeah, physical
100%.
work, right? Because you got to send the emails, you got to show up, you got to record the video, whatever it is, right? But it is so much easier because the universe will like co-create with you.
I almost want to switch up the word universe with our higher self because I feel
Mm.
like our higher self is what we're co-creating with. Do you know what I mean? Like universe is just everybody says universe, but I really feel like because, quantum physics is now saying, in science, that there are infinite versions of ourselves, right? And so there is higher self versions, right? So if we can like co-create with our higher self, it is the same as saying we're co-creating with the universe, but the universe is us. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm like, this is gonna be like a whole other episode of quantum, but you're right. Quantum physics has proven this, science has proven this, that there are infinite versions of ourselves that exist all at once. We want to know, like, yeah, like where are you at in your journey right now? And what are some ways that you elevate your own frequency? What are some ways that help you to keep your frequency high? Or like, what are some of the challenges that you've been having that are like keeping you stuck in a lower vibration and a lower frequency? What are some of the challenges that you've been facing that is like kind of keeping you in that stuck energy? We'd love to know. And
hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will see you next time, Soul Sisters.
bye for now.
Bye.